So this next story is this is really important, and I'm really happy that we're covering this. So Tucker Carlson and Senator Josh Hawley, who's the senator from Missouri, he's a Republican, they really perfected the whole fake populist tap dance here. I gotta ask you, watch the whole thing and then hang in there, because I guarantee you there's some mind-blowing facts that I'm going to give you after you watch this. That really just demonstrates exactly what we're talking about here.
This week, Senator Josh Hawley spoke to the National Conservatism Conference in Washington. He delivered a great speech, legitimately smart and interesting. It's online if you'd like to watch it. It's worth the time. So naturally, because the speech was effective, the left is coming out of the woodwork to accuse Hawley of crime-think. They're now saying he's an anti-Semite. Anti-Semite? Why? Well, because during his speech, Hawley accurately described America's elites as being globalist cosmopolitans with no real attachment to America, because they are. Everyone knows that. Nobody thinks Hawley's an anti-Semite. If they did, they probably would have been upset a few years ago when President Obama said this.
Now, it should be noted that this new international elite, the professional class that supports them, differs in important respects from the ruling aristocracies of old. A decent percentage consider themselves liberal in their politics, modern and cosmopolitan in their outlook.
It was true when Obama said it. It was true when Senator Hawley said it. Senator Hawley joins us tonight. Senator, thanks a lot for coming on.
Thanks for having me.
Did we misdescribe that? You're being called an anti-Semite for describing many of our elites as not attached to the United States.
Yeah, I guess that's right. I mean, what I've learned, Tucker, is that when it comes to liberals, there's only one thing that they love more than being elitist, and that's accusing everybody else of being bigots. In order to shut down speech, in order to devalue the views of the American people, they say, oh, you're a bigot, you're a racist, because they don't want to admit what they have done. They don't want to admit what their policies have done, shipping jobs overseas, hurting working families, keeping wages flat for decades. That's their legacy, and it's time that they owned it.
So what you're saying is that they use cries of bigotry as a diversion to keep you occupied on the defensive so you won't notice how badly they've mismanaged the country.
Yeah, you know, I mean, it is strange, as you point out, that when Barack Obama makes the same point, that an international elite, that's his word, cosmopolitan in their outlook, who are increasingly disconnected. He goes on that same speech to say this new elite is disconnected from national feeling and increasingly disconnected from the workers who actually make the products that they depend on, who actually built this country. I mean, that's precisely what I said. But the left can't take that. They can't be put on the spot, and they don't want to be called out as elitists that they truly are, and they don't want to be put on the spot for their failed policies that have hurt this country, that have hurt the workers of this country, and they don't have anything to offer. And so all we get is, well, you're a bigot, you're a racist, as they try to distract from their failures.
What's so interesting is the left is suddenly in the position of defending the prerogatives of the ruling class. I mean, here you are a Republican taking up for the interests of people who, you know, make 40 grand a year. And liberals are saying, you know, those people deserve no attention and stop criticizing George Soros because he can't be criticized. Is that weird, do you think?
Yeah. Oh, I mean, it's totally weird. But listen, I mean, the liberals are increasingly the party of the elites. I mean, they are the party of the ruling class. And that's the point. And that's what they don't want to admit. They are the ruling class, and they have been for decades. They control the commanding heights in this country, the media, the big multinational corporations, our universities. I mean, they have effectively run the country, the liberals have, for decades now. And their consensus has given us what we have today. I mean, they're the ones who are responsible for jobs offshoring. They're the ones who are responsible for wages flat, for the plight and struggle of working Americans. You know, working Americans, ordinary Americans in places like where I grew up in rural Missouri, they just want somebody to speak for them, and to be constantly told that they're bigots and they're racists and their lives don't matter and their views don't. They're tired of that.
Now, I have no idea if Josh Hawley is an anti-Semite. That was, I guess, the spark for this conversation. And I don't even know who's accusing him of being an anti-Semite. To me, that's all irrelevant. Put that all aside. You heard the rhetoric there. The rhetoric is crystal clear. The rhetoric is anti-corruption. The rhetoric is populist. The rhetoric is like, I'm all about the workers, bro. Let me tell you something about Josh Hawley. Look at this. Josh Hawley graduated from Stanford, has a law degree from Yale. His dad was a banker. Actually, I think the president of a bank. And he supports right to work. Tucker Carlson married into a frozen TV dinner empire. And so his wife is massively wealthy. He's massively wealthy. Now listen, if Josh Hawley or if Tucker Carlson said, okay, whatever, my background is my background, this is who I am, but hey, I support policies X, Y, and Z. I support raising the minimum wage to a living wage. I support unionization. I support Medicare for all. I support free college. I support a variety anti-outsourcing bills. I'm against NAFTA. I'm against TPP. I'm for, Bernie Sanders' proposal to cut off all government contracts to companies that outsource. If they were crystal clear and they came out and said, here are the policies I'm for, I wouldn't be doing this segment where I go after them. Because very simply, you could be like FDR was considered, because he was from a wealthy background, but you could be a traitor to your class. And I'd support you. Totally fine. I'd support you. But let me explain to you one more time. Josh Hawley graduated from Stanford, has a law degree from Yale. His dad was a banker. Again, I could overlook all that and he supports right to work. In other words, he's out there like, me, bro? I'm just out here looking out for working people, all these elitist lefties who, they're the problem in this country. They're the establishment in this country. Their policies have failed. I'm for working people. He supports right to work, which really in reality, just so everybody knows, is right to work for less. It's an anti-union piece of legislation and approach that makes it so that, and studies have found this, people in right to work state make, I think, about $2,000 or $3,000 less on average per year because they're anti-union. So a guy who's pretending to be all for the working class and his politics and his policies are massively anti-union, which means they're anti-worker. This is what I mean, guys. You have to look past the rhetoric. You have to look past the surface level tap dance that they're doing and the kabuki theater that they're doing. Because I'm the one that's admitting up front, hey, if all that stuff was true, the rhetoric that they're talking about, that's convincing. People are going to watch that and go, yeah, okay, cool, Tucker Carlson's not all that bad. Josh Hawley isn't all that bad. Look at them. They're arguing for working people. They're arguing for regular people. They're against the elites. What do you mean? That's great. That's wonderful. But it's fake. It's fake populism. It's like Donald Trump acting like the forgotten man and woman will never be forgotten again. And then he does a tax bill where he hands the keys to the kingdom over to the corporations and over to the rich. He massively cuts the estate tax. Is that populist? Is that looking out for working people? He massively cuts corporate taxes when they're already paying a historically low percentage of the tax burden. Is that populist? Is that looking out for regular people? Every tax cut in his bill for working people is temporary. It's got a sunset provision on it. All the tax cuts for the rich, permanent. They're not real populists. Real populists are crystal clear. They oppose NAFTA. They oppose TPP. They don't renegotiate NAFTA to basically make it almost exactly like NAFTA like Trump did. They support Bernie Sanders' bill to not give any federal government contracts to companies that outsource. They support Buy America in terms of an executive order. Trump did not do that executive order. He could have done it, but he didn't do it. Instead, he did a symbolic Buy America Week, which is nothing but symbolism. He could have signed an executive order that says the federal government only buys products made in America, full stop. But no, the way it works now is we buy from us and all of our allies. He didn't change that. He could have changed that. He didn't change that. Did Tucker Carlson tell you about this? He didn't tell you about this, did he? Did Tucker Carlson tell you about the 93,000 jobs that were outsourced under the Trump administration? As Trump pretends to be the anti-outsourcing president and 93,000 fucking jobs were outsourced. Did Tucker Carlson tell you about that? He didn't tell you about that. Is Tucker Carlson praising the Democrats for the $15 minimum wage bill that they just passed through the House? Is Josh Hawley in agreement with the Democrats? These guys are frauds, man. Now, again, I told you 1,000 times, I'll tell you 1,000 more. This stuff is convincing. This stuff is way more intelligent because it's marketing that works. That's going to get a bigger following because you're saying, hey, I'm fighting for regular people. So they know what they're doing. This is like grade A propaganda. But the fact of the matter is, and the reality is, I don't care about your rhetoric. I don't give a shit about your rhetoric. I don't care what you say. I care about what you do. I care about what bills you actually support. I care about the policies. And the fact of the matter is, Josh Hawley, you supporting right to work, you supporting a right-wing economic approach, and then pretending to be for working people. Get the fuck out of here, man. You are a liar. You're a liar. That's what you are. And then final point I'll make is this. He said, well, the left is always calling people bigots and racist to distract from the failures of their policies. Well, hold on now. If you're being honest, you will admit that the failures in Washington, D.C. have largely been bipartisan. I would argue a little bit more of the blame is on the right. Like, it was George W. Bush who launched the Iraq War and started torture and all that stuff. But yeah, largely bipartisan. He's not accepting and not saying the Republicans are to blame at all for the problems, and he's blaming liberals for all the outsourcing policies. Republicans across the board supported those outsourcing policies, fella. I mean, the Democrats did too. It was Bill Clinton who signed NAFTA. But Republicans across the board supported those outsourcing policies. So when you just blame liberals, as you say, you're wrong. That's not the way it unfolded. That's not the way it worked. And to the idea that, they just call us names to distract from policies. Has Bernie Sanders, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, any of the other actual lefties, have we misspoken? Did we stutter when we called for Medicare for all every 8 seconds? When we called for free college? When we called for a living wage? Oh, you're just distracting and calling people bigots, so you don't have to talk about policy. All we talk about is policy. And if you want to talk about name-calling and distractions, I've heard nothing but wall-to-wall, Ilhan Omar's an anti-Semite, AOC's an anti-Semite, Rashida Tlaib's an anti-Semite. How about that name-calling? How about when you guys don't form an argument, but all you say is, you're socialists and communists and y'all support Venezuela. You're guilty of the thing you're accusing the left of being guilty of. It's a convincing tap dance. It's a fake populist tap dance. It's an anti-corruption tap dance. But it is complete and utter horseshit.